Hello everyone, I'm Sissa Solano. Today's video is not about NaNoWriMo, but it's day 3 of your tracking. I actually wanted to talk to you about some writing techniques. If you've seen my other videos, you know that I'm a middle school English teacher. But what you don't know is that I'm also a freelance book editor and have been so for 15 years. Aside from that, I was also a local newspaper editor for 2 years. Sorry, I'll try to keep my camera still here. That being said, I have a solid background in writing and grammar, and writing is kind of my jam. So I won't spit a bunch of gibberish at you, and like a lot of other YouTubers I've seen out there, or author tubers that I've seen, sorry, gotta watch my grammar while I'm speaking too. I want to just add some of the narration dialogue techniques that are important. That's what I'm going to be talking about today. I've seen some other people discuss it as well. I think what they have to say is great. I might just put my little spin on it. Sometimes you need to hear a rule about something a bunch of different ways before you really understand it. So I'm going to attempt to say it in the way that I would, giving the examples that I would give. And hopefully it helps some of you understand how narration and dialogue can be important and how they should be used in your writing. My little claim to fame, though, before I get started, so you know that I do have a true foundation in editing and writing. You know the movie that just came out this past year called The Meg, that was based on a book, a best-selling book, and it was originally published in 1997, but he wrote a series of books about the Meg. And I had actually edited one of the books in that series, and I was so excited and so thrilled when I got to do that book because it was so well written and so interesting. It didn't even feel like work. It had probably already made its way through several editors' hands before I got it anyway, because it was so fully edited and I didn't have to do a whole lot to it, but it was so interesting to be able to see a New York Times best-selling author's work, you know, in the editing process, which was nice. Anyway, that is my claim to fame. As an editor, I see some of the same errors consistently from many different authors, so I plan on doing a series of videos addressing some of these errors so that we can try to work through them and keep them from showing up in your writing. Narration is important because it helps immerse the reader into the world of your story, and yes, I'm going to be glancing down, I'm sorry. It heightens the reader's senses, it turns on the reader's inner movie. A lot of people, when they're reading, they have this inner movie reel that's playing in their head. I know I do. So I want to be able to picture what's going on in the scene, which is hard to do if the narration is not there. I have to use my own life, my own experience to fill in the gaps, and I'd rather the author do that for me. Narration plays a key role in depicting action, whether it's a tense action scene with clanging swords or simply a scene where your characters are sitting down to have dinner. We need that narration to be able to see what's going on. So narration, and let's stumble over that word, I think. Narration will help the reader become immersed in these scenes with your characters, which is what you want. In real life, there's not a constant stream of dialogue. You have to have a balance of narration and dialogue. In real life, obviously, you're taking in everything, so you're able to look around the room. You're able to inhale the senses and odors and fragrances and everything. You are able to feel the frigid temperature of your car as you step into it in the wintertime. Whatever. You're able to enjoy the life senses that you have available to you. Obviously, some people are missing a sense or two, hopefully not more than one at a time. That's detrimental enough. But if you are fortunate enough to have all 5 of your senses, you are able to take this in yourself. So what happens when you're reading a book, you need someone to tell you what's going on. That's where the narration comes in. But you don't want something that's going to be too dialogue driven or too narration driven. You have to have a nice balance. So what I want to do is show you a scene that is dialogue driven, and then we'll talk about how we can fix it. "Where's the book?" Michael asked. "It's over there," Claudia replied. "Why did you put it over there? You know I don't like it when you touch my stuff." Well, don't leave it on the table. You know I can't stand when you clutter the table with your junk, Claudia retorted. I wish you would just mind your business, Michael said. Whatever, Michael. I will mind my business when you stop leaving a trail of junk behind you. So did you notice that there was no narration? We don't have any idea what movements the characters are doing or what actions complemented the characters' conversation. We can't picture much about the scene except what little came out through the dialogue. Adding narration helps bring in the reader. So, this is that scene again with narration, and see if you can spot the difference, or if it makes you feel any differently about that scene. Where's the book? Michael glared at Claudia from beside the dining room table where his book had been the night before. It's over there. Claudia pointed toward a dusty, disorganized bookshelf in the corner that had been her dumping ground for his belongings for quite some time. Why did you put it over there? Michael crossed the musty, dingy living room and snatched his book off the shelf. You know I don't like it when you touch my stuff. So I don't feel the need to finish that scene. I think you get the general idea of how to add narration. For that, I didn't even use any dialogue tags. You can use dialogue tags and narration, but in this case, I decided to remove the dialogue tags and show who was speaking through action. Both options are viable options. Sometimes it's just nice to remove the dialogue tag and just show the action. It still shows who's speaking at that moment because the narration is next to the dialogue for whoever's doing the action, but you don't always want action going along with the dialogue, so sometimes all you need is Michael said, Claudia retorted, or what have you. The narration adds to the scene, so another aspect of avoiding too much dialogue in your scene is the awareness that as quickly as it takes to read the conversation is how quickly your reader imagines the entire scene. If it only takes someone 30 seconds to read a conversation, then the entire scene only lasted 30 seconds in the reader's mind. So what you want to do is slow the reader down using narration. In all likelihood, real-life events or even cinematic events take longer than 30 seconds, so you want to slow your reader down and give those necessary details. If a scene should take 1 to 2 minutes, make sure it takes your reader 1 to 2 minutes to read that scene. If a scene takes 5 minutes, make sure your reader is taking the time to read that scene for 5 minutes. And you can't just say, this sequence of events took 5 minutes to occur, because that doesn't happen in your reader's brain. Your reader is really going to imagine only as long as it takes him or her to read that scene. So you want to try to slow down. It's called slowing down time in writing. The flip side of this is that you don't want to add too much narration and not enough dialogue. I have to tell my students all the time that the reader does not want you telling him or her what the conversation was about. Instead, the reader wants you to show the conversation and immerse him or her in that scene. Here's an example of what kind of narration to avoid. I'm just going to give you a short scene. I heard my alarm buzzing faintly in the background. I rolled toward the sound and slapped my hand on the nightstand a few times until I found my phone and hit snooze. My mom called from downstairs and told me to get up and eat breakfast. I dozed back off for a few more minutes until my alarm started buzzing again. At this point, my mom's voice became more shrill as she screamed for me to get my tush out of bed and get downstairs now. For this scene, there is too much telling happening. I'm sure you've heard the advice multiple times, show, don't tell. Sometimes it's hard for authors to recognize they're doing it, so you want to stop and think, can I show the reader what's happening in this scene? Is this scene telling the reader what's happening, or is it showing the reader what's happening? So you want to make sure you're showing the reader. One way to fix that is using the 5 senses or imagery to immerse the reader. Also, you should almost never tell the reader how a conversation went. Instead, you should show the conversation through dialogue. I say almost never because you don't want to waste important dialogue space in your novel with general pleasantries. So we don't need to know every little thing your character is saying. Sometimes you can summarize it through narration if it's not relevant to the plot or if it's not relevant to character building. So for example, you can narrate that a character greeted you as you walked through the front door of your office building instead of showing the actual dialogue of that greeting. But otherwise, you should be showing your reader the conversation. Here's how we could overcorrect. Here's how we could correct the over narration of the previous example. I heard my alarm buzzing faintly in the background. I rolled toward the sound and slapped my hand on the nightstand a few times until I found my phone and hit snooze. Denise! Mom called from downstairs. Denise, are you awake? Get up and come down and get your breakfast. I dozed off for a few more minutes until my alarm started buzzing again. I attempted to slap the snooze button one more time, but my hand slipped. I turned off my alarm by accident. If I stayed in bed this time, I was going to be late for school. My brain began swirling with thoughts of getting ready for the day. Denise! Mom's shrill tone pierced my thoughts. Okay, I muttered to myself. Get up now! Breakfast is getting cold. Coming! I shouted and tossed back my warm, cozy comforter. In this scene, we are showing both narration and dialogue. The reader can feel pretty immersed in Denise's life, so it's important to find that balance. Also, not every page needs to have dialogue. Sometimes you just need to narrate through a scene. Not every moment of our lives are we immersed in a conversation with someone else. We do have quiet time. So your characters don't need to be talking all the time either. But every page needs to have narration, even during dialogue. You need to have some narration through scenes where there's heavy dialogue. That way your reader can picture what's going on and is also not bored in the he said, she said, he said, she said. So make sure you have a nice balance of narration and dialogue. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments below. Good luck on NaNoWriMo and good luck on writing your novel.